This episode is brought to you by the Colfax Avenue Business Improvement District. Looking for fun that's a little less fancy and a lot more Colfax? Even during VRT construction, your favorite street is bringing the vibes, food, fun, and unforgettable events. Show your love by visiting Colfax businesses or joining this spring for the Krabby for Colfax Seafood Boil fundraiser, the first annual Apothecary Tour, Big Wigs Bar Crawl, and the Colfax Avenue Community Cleanup. Support the places that make Denver, Denver. I mean, I love the people of Colfax. My favorite guy in a bathrobe, wig, cigar. So look, maybe I'll see him there. I'd love to see him there. That's what makes Colfax Colfax. You don't know who you're going to see. Colfax is always open, always authentic, and always worth the trip. Get all the event details and sign up at colfaxav.com. That's colfaxav.com. This episode is brought to you by the Regional Air Quality Council. Happy Air Quality Awareness Week! The biggest air quality issue in our mile-high summers is something called ground-level ozone. It's created from pollutants like car exhaust. You can't see it, you can't smell it, but it is the leading cause of respiratory problems like asthma. But good news, you can help. This summer, you can take steps for better air, like switching to electric lawn equipment, upgrading your car to an EV, working from home, or just choosing to walk, bike, or scooter instead of drive. Sign up for Summer Ozone text alerts to know when it matters most. Just text Better Air CO to 21000 or visit simplestepsbetterair.org. Again, just text Better Air CO to 21000 or visit simplestepsbetterair.org. Today on CityCast Denver, new footage of U.S. Marshals arresting a man on an RTD bus is calling into question how the transit agency interacts with federal immigration enforcement. This comes on top of a judge's ruling this week upholding a restraining order meant to keep people from being deported out of Colorado. Then Senator Michael Bennet and Attorney General Phil Weiser are the top contenders to be our next governor. But are they quirky enough? A listener asked, and we answer. Plus, our wins and fails of the week. Today is Friday, April 25th. I'm Bree Davies, and here's what Denver's talking about. Welcome to CityCast Denver, the show about the city that will be taking immersive experiences to the next level with a new immersive thing called Immersive Titanic. I don't.
You can drown all you want.
Wow. Yes,
drown
Paul,
for yourself.
That's it says.
What is the experience of drowning?
Well, Westward reported that, quote, voyagers will be placed on the bridge on April 14th, 1912, as they watch the ice warnings come in. They'll be in the boiler room the moment the iceberg hits the hull of the ship and water starts pouring in. So
it's like the one in the shipping container last summer that gave my wife panic attacks.
The plane crash. I'm like, these are things I don't want to experience.
Did you actually do it last summer?
No.
Oh my God, it was horrifying.
That's what I heard. That's why I avoided it.
Yeah.
Well, this one is in what is this place called? The Exhibition Art Hub that also housed Bubble Planet.
Can't say I'm familiar.
I just got a million ads for it on Instagram. It looked like a selfie museum, but I guess it was like an immersive experience of some kind. The Exhibition Art Hub, Justine, you'll love to know, is actually in the old, I think we knew it as the Regency.
The Regency?
Dorms that became Assembly, that at one point were a nightclub called Los Corporales.
Yep, the devil was there.
I read this whole story. I fell down this crazy rabbit hole last night. Actually, Patty Calhoun wrote the most Patty Calhoun story about it. It's called Satan Sheets.
Oh.
It's got a Patty pun in it, and it's all about folks that were seeing the devil in this building.
Yes, he was riding the mechanical bull, and his boot fell off, and everyone saw his hoof. That's like the story when I was growing up. And then people would always be like, don't go in there. That's where the devil is. But a lot of really bad things and shady things happened during that time when it was the nightclub. So it's not far off that the devil was there.
That's what this story is about, is like it starts with the myth, but then it goes into all the bad owners of the building and like the bad stuff that happened there. It's a great rabbit hole. I'll share a link in the show notes if you want to read a little weird Denver story.
Yeah, there's an Elvis connection too.
It's just off I-25 in like 38th. It's a hotel that has, it's now called the Assembly, which is like, it's student housing. It's got a big painting of like,
yeah, well, it used to be like the hotel to stay at in Denver, and Elvis liked to stay there.
Yeah,
that's like
yes, it was very fancy, and then it got very not fancy.
Yes,
So you can go there now. It's starting in May and enjoy an immersive experience of the Titanic.
I thought of a Titanic thing I would want to do to immerse myself in. You know how DiCaprio drowns at the end, falling off I want to see if I could hold on. Or like if I could, me and my wife are on there, maybe we both can fit on the raft.
Didn't Mythbusters do that?
Did they?
I think
I was
they
like,
did.
that might be part of this immersive experience.
I think they found that they both could have stayed on the door.
See, I always thought I could do it.
I've never seen Titanic, so, but I just assumed they died.
Yeah.
Since like a lot of people did. Anyway, it's Friday. We're in the Dude IDK studios. I'm here with producer Paul Caroli. Hello.
Hi.
And of course, our politics and green chili correspondent, Justine. We got you 2 days this week. Hello.
Yeah, what?
Before we get into the show, really quick, we're inviting you to be our neighbor. We're at the end of the first week of our spring membership campaign, and we would love for you to support us. And we know you're informed, engaged Denverites. That's why you listen to this show. And for only $10 a month, you can become a member, and you get a really cool coffee mug. Have you seen the coffee mugs, Paul? How do you feel about the coffee mugs?
They look great. But here's the thing, folks. We have a goal for this spring membership drive. We're running it for 2 weeks. We're trying to get 85 members. That's a lot.
That is a lot.
That's a lot. And right now, we're not there.
No, we are not.
We've had a lot of support. Love seeing all the members roll in. We get a little notification on Slack every time it happens. Makes me smile. But we need more people to sign up to beat Salt Lake City.
We're always trying to do.
That's my number one goal.
Beat Salt Lake.
Our
friends, Salt Lake,
who I deeply respect, Allie and Emily. I want to beat them.
But they're doing really well. And so we need you to join us. Membership.citycast.fm. Again, $10 a month. You get this awesome mug, but also you get to support this show and the thing that we make every day. And we just really appreciate it. You get a little space too if you want to share what you like about CityCast, and then we might read that on the show. So we appreciate it if you join us today. Okay, well, let's get into the news. We've got this sort of bigger umbrella conversation around immigration happening, and there were 2 sort of big stories this week here in Colorado. Earlier this week, U.S. District Judge Charlotte Sweeney extended a temporary order that prevents the Trump administration from using the Alien Enemies Act to deport Venezuelan individuals detained in Colorado. Last week, Sweeney had sided with the ACLU, approving the initial temporary restraining order on behalf of the nonprofit civil rights group, which had sued the Trump administration on behalf of 2 Venezuelan men who have been accused of being a part of Tren de Aragua, of course. I mean, this is an interesting story for a lot of reasons, but I listened to actually a Throughline episode on the Alien Enemies Act, which I didn't know anything about, but it's an 18th century. Like, it's really, really old.
What's the story? Where'd it come from? Why do we have it?
It's explained by the Brennan Center for Justice as, quote, a wartime authority that allows the president to detain or deport the natives and citizens of an enemy nation. The law permits the president to target these immigrants without a hearing and based only on their country of birth or citizenship. But the interesting part is, like, it's only been used 3 other times since it's been invoked, and that was during the War of 1812.
Is that the first? Is that why the law was passed?
No, the law was passed as part of a set of laws, and I think the Sedition Act was the most famous out of the group of laws, and this one was actually not enacted initially when it was crafted as part of this bigger group of laws, from what I understood from this Throughline episode. So it didn't get used until 1812. And then it was used again in World War I and then World War II. And now this is the only time during what folks are saying is not wartime that they're using it.
Which is such an interesting argument from the Trump administration that this gang is an army invading the country.
It feels like we keep reading about it and I just don't see the actual...
You mean the gang?
Yeah, the gang that supposedly infiltrated Aurora.
Well, Trende, I can't even say anymore because it's
TDA.
So mispronounced in the media. I'm like, what is it? But it's the new MS-13 because for a long time that was like...
The evolution of this fear-mongering around gangs.
Exactly.
Which feels very 90s.
Oh, real gangs.
Real gangs, but the hysteria around their actual presence is what reminds me of how we talked about gangs in the 90s, which I don't know.
What were you saying, Justine?
Oh, I was just thinking, like, speaking of the 90s, it's just like this misaffiliation. Like, they were always trying to crack down on gang activity, like when gangs were a lot more prevalent in the Denver area. And I remember going to school and every other week you couldn't wear this color. Or
I
if
got
you
sent
had
home for wearing a red accessory.
Yeah, red. And it was like whatever color of the week that they identified as the gang color or any type of like symbolism you might have on your clothes. And it targeted all of us as youth for anything that they
Sports
perceived
teams.
as gang affiliated.
Our rule at George Washington was no red and no blue accessories of any kind. No hats, no belts.
No Chicago Bulls, which is
no Raiders.
Crazy now because that was one of the things that they were
for TDA.
Claiming, that they wear Chicago Bulls gear.
But that Jumpman logo. If you have the Jumpman logo tattoo, apparently that's a TDA affiliated.
That's like everyone in the early 2000s had a Jumpman.
Well, it's a very big gang. It's what
I was just talking to you about your Wu-Tang tattoo. Like, if they started rounding up folks with Wu-Tang tattoos, that'd be like the millennial generation.
Yeah.
It's just like the tattooing part is. I don't know. That's really scary.
It's terrifying.
Well, I mean, I think this is what's so interesting about it is because there's this core argument they're making, the new president and his ideas about this, and they're making this in court. We know that this is where the battle is in the courts. We've been talking about this for a long time. The ACLU is fighting this. But once they make this core argument, the implications for that across our entire society as a country, all sorts of little things, our culture, our transportation, like we'll talk about in a few minutes, our politics, all the implications are so wide reaching. I think they really found something with this law. The interpretation they're making, it's quite interesting, this legal battle to me.
There was another story related to the immigration conversation that happened here in Denver this week as well. Friend of the show, Jeremy Hohola at 9 News, obtained footage from an April 1st RTD bus ride where U.S. Marshals stormed the bus and apprehended Galan Vito Romero, one of 2 men who had escaped from ICE custody in March, which I had missed. Speaking
of black holes, the way they escaped.
Oh my God, the door was unlocked?
The door was unlocked because the power went out and these guys just walked out and then hopped a fence.
Yeah.
I did not remember this story.
Really?
I really
they were
don't.
at large for this guy was at large for 2 weeks. I totally remember. Oh man, this was weird.
It must have been when I was on vacation.
Week that they picked up Jeanette Visquera, and that it was around the same time, I remember. But yeah, the power went out and they opened the electronic lock was off and they just took off.
The other gentleman that they apprehended who had escaped, they found, quote, riding his bike suspiciously around an empty car wash. And
I saw a video of this as well.
You did?
He was on the berm of a highway
and
he had his face covered and it was the middle of the night.
Okay, I was like, what does riding a bike suspiciously mean?
I mean, if you do it in the middle of the night, I think.
I guess.
I don't know. I mean.
Well, let's talk about this video a little bit. It occurred on the 15 bus, which we already know is kind of can be chaotic. And it was a pretty packed bus, the footage that we saw. So Vito Romero and an unnamed woman were taken off the bus by U.S. Marshals, but it was really scary to watch. Paul, can you kind of describe what happened in that video?
Sure. It's surreal. I mean, if you've ever been on the bus, you know what the scene was. You're sitting there, and then at a certain point, they go to a stop, and then a bunch of dudes with guns come on and uniforms. And it turns out it's not ICE. I thought it was ICE. It's the U.S. Marshals, because what they were enforcing was the prison break. Not the prison break, but escaping from prison. So these guys come on, and then the really shocking part was a guy with a hoodie takes off his hoodie. He's sitting in the second from the back row, and then he pulls out what looks like a gun, but apparently is a taser. And then he turns around and he points it at this guy behind him who was previously not noticeable. Turns out to be that's Vito Romero, which, may or may not be his name. I did a little bit of a deep dive on who this guy is, but that they get him and then they start escorting these guys off the bus. And I guess that's the arrest. We don't know who the woman is. I don't know who the woman is. I couldn't tell.
Well, and I'm glad you pointed out that this was U.S. Marshals, because the conversation lately has been, does ICE have the right to enter certain spaces? But Paul, you talked to someone at RTD on the board about this situation. Do they have a protocol around this? What was their stance?
Yeah, so Jeremy Hohola reported that he had asked RTD if they cooperated with the arrest, and he didn't hear back at the time of the reporting. I talked to Chris Nicholson, who's the RTD director that we've featured on the show a couple times. He represents Central Denver. He said that we were notified about their presence, but RTD police did not coordinate with them. But he also talked to me generally about what this whole incident poses to RTD as a quandary, because I heard from other folks, like I have a person I've been talking to who feels very vulnerable with this immigration crackdown. And she sent me this video and she said that she didn't feel comfortable with RTD. Like this is like has a chilling effect on people wanting to ride the bus. This to some people, this looks like, harassment of another rider. And Chris told me the same thing for RTD. This is like, you want everybody to feel safe.
That was my exact thought, was like, in the midst of this conversation we're having about, do people even feel safe enough to ride public transportation? Is that one of the reasons that RTD is not doesn't have higher ridership numbers? I would have to say, regardless of my status or not, if I was on the bus when that happened, I would not want to ride the bus again.
I've been on the bus when someone was arrested like that before.
Really?
I was
What
going to
was it
ask
like?
you,
What
because
happened?
you were a bus rider for a long time.
Yes, it was on Federal on the 31 bus. And there was an undercover on the bus stop. And when we pulled up to a stop, the cops jumped on and they arrested this guy right there and held him down and cuffed him and took him off the bus.
Damn. Sounds like a very similar situation.
Totally. When you were describing that, I'm like, wait, I've been in a situation like this before on the bus.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
How did you feel?
I mean, it was like, one of those moments when you're like, what the heck is going on? Like the bus is already
There's
chaotic.
just so much disorient.
Mhm.
That's kind of what I felt in watching the videos. You could see people just being like, what is this?
Yeah. I mean, like I was on my way home from work. And so you're already like cramped on
I can't
there.
imagine
And then
you're a kid, like you're in high school, or you've got your family on the bus. I'm thinking
but my
about the
thought
bus
was,
driver.
like how much planning went into this? Like this person was on the bus with the person they were trying to apprehend.
Yeah.
Like, was it pre-planned? Did the bus driver know the cops were going to jump on? We were off like 26 and Federal, I think. Yeah, by the Safeway.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's what what I was thinking about was like, if I'm RTD, this is a tricky situation. Like you want it to be a safe place. I don't know. The other thing Chris said was like, they obey the laws. They operate within federal, state, and local law enforcement. And it's pretty common for law enforcement to come onto the bus to do things. Well, maybe not common, but it happens. And that's the agency's policy to do so. But he also alerted me to this situation. The other side of this is they don't want to take too strong of a position because the Trump administration is threatening transportation funding. Specifically on this issue, there was a Reuters reporter who posted that the Department of Transportation has said specifically to local transportation agencies that if they do not coordinate with immigration enforcement, that they could lose federal funding. And in RTD's case, that is a lot. So we're talking about deferred maintenance. We're talking about even more infrequent service. We're talking about RTD, which is already struggling, being even less useful to people. And all of it would be because of this like single point of leverage that the Trump administration is putting on because of immigration.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about being a person on that bus, though. You're held captive. You can't go anywhere. Like, that would make me feel extremely unsafe on an RTD bus. You witnessed that once, I wouldn't get on one again. So, I don't know. It's frustrating because this feels like the story for so many institutions and programs and, scientific studies, all these organizations and academic, like they're pinned up against a wall with this threat of funding.
Transportation's not one you think of right away, but it's such a big, part of people's everyday lives. I've heard this argument a lot with hospitals reassuring patients and staff that they, are not going to volunteer any personal information on any patients. But yeah, people's everyday lives, this makes people reluctant to get out, and they're worried because you're not safe anywhere. You are vulnerable in all spaces.
In transportation specifically, we saw it again this week. Representative Lauren Boebert of Colorado calls on DOGE and Elon Musk to cut federal funding for the Front Range passenger rail.
For Governor Polis's dream rail.
Says that it doesn't serve the interests of Douglas County. Yeah. Which Polis says that it's not even getting federal funding, but that's a little bit more complicated than he said, I think.
I just want this train to happen. That's all. I'm like, please.
Justine, I think a lot of folks have wanted this train to happen for a long time, but it may not be the time yet again. We never know. Well, this larger conversation about immigration, Justine, you're behind closed doors in the political world. We kind of know where the GOP stands. What are What are you hearing from Dems in terms of taking a stance on immigration?
I think, majority of Dems believe that we need to have comprehensive immigration reform. But I think the Democratic Party has been engaged in a significant internal debate for a long time now, back from the 2024 election cycle, on whether or not to really confront immigration issues head on, or to take a more moderate approach and focus on other topics like the economy. And so right now we've kind of seen some debate where everyone can't get on the same page and how they're approaching this. There were some comments, I think, recently by Gavin Newsom, where he had walked the comments back, saying it wasn't about originally what he had said, which was that the deportation stuff, the gang stuff, is all a way to distract us from bigger issues like the economy. And so that's kind of the debate. What should we be focusing on to win back the American people to have trust in us? And I think that that's been, an issue. And, it's been a debate between more progressive and more moderate Democrats.
It's interesting the change between just 2024 election season to now.
Yeah.
How it was being talked about and how maybe it's not being talked about.
Well, and I think it's, there were people arguing during the 2024 election cycle that it wasn't, the issue that we should be focused on. Everyone was focused on the price of eggs. But it's okay, even if you had that stance in the 2024 election cycle, now, it is in our face, and it is an issue that is going to impact everybody. This foreign prison, disappearing people, violating people's due process, that should be alarming to everybody. And I think the Democrats need to not be wishy-washy right now. They need to fully stand in their convictions and say, hey, this is a human rights violation, and that, we need comprehensive immigration reform that does not just include border security, but also looks at this from a humanitarian standpoint. And I think that there's two things here. A lot of the way that people view immigration as a problem and what the problems really are with immigration. I think, it's a broken system. There's no streamlined process to get people into this country. And I think that's the bigger issue. It shows that Republicans think of this as more of a issue than Democrats think of it as an immediate issue. So I think a lot of what happens is that we're not talking about the actual facts around immigration and what we need to do to have actual meaningful immigration reform. And because we're not talking about those as a party, the fear is filling in that void. And so by us not standing up and talking about it directly, we're letting that fear take over in people's minds, that gangs are coming over the border, that all of these really bad things are happening that are not actually happening.
I've been thinking about this a lot. I think this is interesting. What you said about Gavin Newsom pointing at the economy, I feel like he's trying to separate these things. And I feel like what Trump did successfully for a lot of people is link them and make immigration an economic issue for people and say, stealing our jobs, look at the price of housing. There was that story about in Ohio, the eating our dogs and cats thing.
Oh,
that was all about housing. Same at Tren de Aragua in Aurora, all about housing and the economy. Trump made immigration about the economy and he linked it to these fears, and that was a successful message. I'm not hearing any Democrats make that same connection. I'm hearing Democrats talk about streamlining the process and fixing the process, but I don't know what they think the problem is, except for maybe wait times or I just don't understand. I don't think there's an agreement about what Democrats think the problem is with the border. And I think if they want to be successful, you have to link it to the economy the way Trump does. Have a positive message that makes the connection so people can understand it in their lives, even if they don't have a personal connection with a person who maybe has come from Mexico or El Salvador or Venezuela or wherever.
Well, I think that's one of the interesting things that's starting to happen, though, is the Kilmar Abrego Garcia case really woke a lot of folks up to what this looks like in practice when someone has done all the, quote, proper steps and done everything, quote, legally and is still being able to be apprehended. But I think I see the problem, too, is I guess more in the farther left sphere that I engage with mostly is it's a humanitarian issue. It's always talked about, which it is. It's a humanitarian issue. It's no human is illegal, world without borders. But it's not talking about maybe what even the bigger conversation needs to be is like, how do we reform it? What does it have to do with economics? Why is it becoming a housing issue? Why did it become all these things if we're thinking about it in two different spheres completely?
I feel like the message, I don't know. I mean, I don't want to belabor the abundance point because we've talked about that a lot, but like, I think growth and like bringing new people in to like take advantage. People want to have jobs. People want to work.
That's the thing
People
that blows
want
my
to
mind.
start companies, build companies. Like there was a great story about the Venezuelan migrant who came and was a clown and like people were paying him to do clowning stuff. Like I feel like Denver could use 100 more people like that. Like our neighborhoods, I learned this week, are shrinking in the center of the city. That we're losing people.
I mean, it's expensive.
Because of dinks, like families move to the suburbs. Like the city is losing people. We are losing sales tax. Like the city is shrinking. We need more economic energy and vitality and more people who are excited to be here, who fought like hell to get here, to try to build their lives for themselves and their families are a boon to the community.
Well, and we're also losing these people that do the things like build the buildings that we need. Like we're losing a lot of that labor. And I think I see this common complaint. It's like online about, oh, another person came to wash my window while I was in an intersection. I was like, they're literally trying to work. Yeah. Isn't this been the argument forever? Is these folks don't want to work? Yeah. All they want to do is work. And we're removing folks from I agree. I don't know. I'm curious what this looks like in 6 months, if they continue this on this path.
I feel the same way.
Well, let's move on to
Can I do one more thing on this?
Sure.
I looked up this guy.
Oh, yeah. I was going to ask you.
This was so interesting
the gentleman that was apprehended on the bus.
Yeah, because like, I just wanted to know who he was and what the crime was, because the U.S. Marshals were there, not ICE. That's when I learned that I was like, oh, so they're there because he broke out of this detention facility. Why was he in the detention facility? Here's what this guy's story is, which, by the way, so much conflicting information about this dude. So his name has been reportedly Gaylon Vito Romero, Venezuelan national, entered the U.S. in December 2023 in Texas. He was apparently arrested on February 26 by Lone Tree Police for misdemeanor theft. Misdemeanor theft, which is a theft of between $500 and $2,000.
Okay.
That was his crime.
Was it.
That was his crime. Now, before that, he was apparently, ICE says that he was wanted, a judge wanted to deport him already because he was connected to Tren de Aragua, probably because he had a Jumpman tattoo or something like this.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm sure tattoo related.
Yeah, but like that was why he was there. Just misdemeanor theft was why he was picked up. And then Lone Tree Police sent him to Douglas County Jail. And because they like to collaborate with ICE, they connected, and then ICE picked him up the next day after his arrest at that jail.
And that was the reason for,
and then here's the crazy
pulling
part.
This man off the bus.
ICE identified him as Gaylon Vito Romero, but the Douglas County Sheriff's Office said his actual name is Vito Romero Gaylon Jose. We don't know this guy's name.
I feel like this is a paperwork mix-up. Like someone wrote it down wrong.
Yeah. Somebody was telling me that the hardest time they have during tax season is people with hyphenated names.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I feel like if you have a lot of names, that can happen.
Yeah. It just feels like a paperwork problem that then gets reprinted, repeated by media.
All the media, different everywhere.
Us included, yeah.
Like, don't even know this dude's name? Arresting him on a bus?
How did they get him on the bus?
I know. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, weird governors.
This episode is brought to you by LifeLock. Not everyone is careful with your personal information, which might explain why there's a victim of identity theft every 5 seconds in the U.S. Fortunately, there's LifeLock. LifeLock monitors hundreds of millions of data points a second for threats to your identity. If your identity is stolen, a U.S.-based restoration specialist will fix it, guaranteed, or your money back. Save up to 40% your first year by visiting LifeLock.com/podcast. Terms apply.
Hey CityCast, something I appreciate about the Cozy Earth Mother's Day sale is that they know motherhood looks different on everyone. So whether you're raising kids, dogs, or Kane, all moms work hard and they deserve comfort. So let me tell you about these Cozy Earth sheets. They feel like cool water in a sort of, is this the Ritz-Carlton or my own bedroom kind of way. The pajamas are what I imagine celebrity moms sleep in, buttery soft. You're looking for the right gift because the women who raised you feel like home. And they are going to love Cozy Earth bamboo pajamas, and I know this because it's 3:24 p.m. and I'm still wearing mine. To celebrate moms everywhere, Cozy Earth is supporting your favorite local podcast and giving our listeners a special promo. 45% off site-wide. This is a luxury brand, and that is a mind-blowing deal. Use Cozy Denver to take advantage of 45% off at CozyEarth.com.
We're back. We got this great email from a listener who identifies as Tim from the far west side of Denver. He said, "Hey, CityCast Denver, I have some thoughts on what it takes to be a governor. Specifically, you need to be quirky. Looking at our governors of the last 50 years, and he starts to break down all of the governors. So I'm just going to pull some of them out and we can talk about them. First, he says Dick Lamb, the guy who stopped the 76 Olympics and was the original Reform Party presidential candidate before Ross Perot swooped in. Thoughts on Dick Lamb?
Also, I mean, can we just talk about the premise? Does Colorado need a quirky governor? Like his whole idea. I love this email. Tim, thank you so much for emailing.
Quirky means.
Yeah, what does that mean? What is quirky?
Like, how does Dick Lamb fit into the quirky? I mean, he stopped the Olympics. Does that make him quirky?
I mean, he's a maverick for sure. He was an accountant who went on to lead a popular movement to stop this international organization from doing a very beloved sporting event here in Denver.
We stopped it.
And
he changed the entire state's mind about hosting the Olympics.
Yeah. And that attitude has stuck for a long time.
It has.
Mhm.
Like I grew up being no Olympics in Colorado.
Same.
He's kind of a quirky guy in terms of I don't know. There was this controversy he had later in life where he said he was talking about physician-assisted suicide, and he made some comment. He said the quote is he said older people have a duty to die and step aside for younger people to step forward.
I remember.
And it was some, maybe not the best phrasing of how what he wanted to say, and people got distracted, and I don't know. I mean, unfortunately, he passed a couple of years ago, so we can't get back into that with him. But
yeah,
I feel like that was quirky.
Yeah, and I remember, I'm not exactly sure what it was, but there was some controversial stances he took on immigration later on.
Oh, yeah.
People.
I mean, for similar reasons, he was an anti-growth guy. Same as Edward Abbey. Some of these Western white guy conservationists were weirdly anti-immigrant because they wanted to preserve the pristine wilderness that they had themselves discovered a few years prior.
I know. I was like, they were just handed to do what they will with.
Yeah.
Now there is a group, we call them the population control enviro bros, where we're like, okay, don't be on our side.
Interesting world right now. The whole degrowth conversation,
easiest solution for everyone, accessible, free birth control. I mean, we want to talk about no growth. Let people make that choice.
Free birth control.
So
get your
just
birth
saying,
control,
there could be some alignment there for those anti-growth enviro bros.
Birth control.
Roy Romer is who he brings up next. Tim says he bought an entire ski area for his 7 kids because it was cheaper than buying them all ski passes.
Wow.
Incredible story.
Also famous for wearing a leather jacket to presidential events because Colorado casual is a lifestyle. So the leather jacket thing, is that quirky? Is the Colorado lifestyle, the way we dress, quirky or just bad?
I don't think it's bad. I just think it's very Colorado.
Yeah.
I know in DC, remember there was a group, I don't know if they're still around, it was like the Blue Jean Democrats. And it's like Western state Dems who wear blue jeans.
I was at a community event this week and there were a lot of politicians there and a lot of cowboy boots. But different styles of cowboy boots. And I
always say if you run for office in Colorado, you need cowboy boots. If you need jean, I need a jean dress if I'm going to run for office.
Yeah, or a big
some
jean
turquoise
prairie skirt.
Yeah, a prairie skirt with a jean shirt. Yeah, there's a look.
The jacket connection with our current mayor, Mike Johnston, who has his
Wrangler jacket,
the corduroy with the sheepskin lining that he wore to DC and met the president in. And is that maybe it's quirky?
I mean, maybe it's Polis and his tennis shoes.
Yeah, maybe you just need a cool jacket or some distinctive shoes,
or just a distinctive item of clothing that's yours.
Yeah,
maybe.
I feel like I've been thinking about this a lot lately, but there was a line that Timothy Chalamet as Bob Dylan gave in the recent biopic where he was talking about being on stage, and he was like, "You got to be a freak up there." You got to be someone people want to watch.
Yeah,
And I was like,
that's true.
interesting.
It's not that easy being a front person.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of charisma and maybe weirdness or quirkiness.
Anyway,
Same
check
for
out the show on
politics.
YouTube. You can now watch us on Fridays at the CityCast Denver YouTube account.
Like, are we? Well, Colorado. Paul has an Avalanche jersey on. I guess that's pretty Colorado.
Yeah.
You know, I'm wearing this is a local brand puppet theater. So there you go. Okay. Bill Owens publicly debated Howard Dean on the Patriot Act in front of the ACLU, now works for a company trying to export Colorado's water, which seems on brand for our state's politics. Bill Owens.
The Bill Owens years.
99 to 2007.
I know. I was
Yeah.
like, I can't say I was politically engaged at this time. I definitely voted, but I didn't know what was going on.
I was engaged at the time with, well, of course, because it's been a lifelong journey for me. But I just remember our big thing was he was the first Republican governor in a while. So the big mission was to get rid of him.
That is interesting.
Mhm.
I wonder. Yeah, I'm curious about the climate at that time for Colorado.
Yeah, we were still very red state.
It's not
And-
that long ago. I think this is a great reminder of
Yes,
that.
not that long ago.
Can't say I'm that familiar with Owens personally.
Yeah, I have
But the
to
water deal I looked up, I think what Tim is referring to is this proposal a couple of years ago to export water from the San Luis Valley to Douglas County. Because
That's right.
Owens is one of his former advisors is like running a company that had put together that proposal. So, and Owens apparently backed it.
Okay.
So
I feel like
I don't know if that's quirky.
I know.
was
I was
ambitious.
like, I'm not feeling the quirkiness. Maybe I need to look at his clothes.
Yeah.
to really judge it. Next is we come back to a Democratic Governor, Bill Ritter, the political paradox who pushed for universal health care and environmental protection while maintaining anti-abortion and anti-same-sex marriage stances. What a combo. Does that make you quirky? I don't know.
I mean, at that time in Colorado, there were a lot of anti-abortion Democrats.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And
Same with
anti-same-sex
anti-same-sex.
marriage.
Yeah,
Although
same sex.
2007 to 2011, I think that was changing at that time.
Yeah.
I randomly saw Bill Ritter at like a weird rave after party.
I just remember Bill
Was he
Ritter.
having a good time?
He was standing there and looked like a school principal. He was wearing like a polo shirt and khakis. And I don't know if he was like trying to find his child or something there, but I was like, what is this
I'm like,
guy
wait, a rave? Is
doing?
that what you
It was like an after party-ish, like I don't remember what we
Like
were. It was in a
2
weird
a.m.?
old, it was like a weird old warehousey space. And I was like, I think that's our governor. And then I was like,
Well, I remember he was elected, then he was going to run for re-election. And we did a big press conference with like the Latino caucus and stuff. And
Mhm.
then like a month later, he dropped out of the race.
Yeah, I was reading about that too. The
Yeah.
polls were not looking good for him. And so he ended up stepping aside and
Oh.
Hickenlooper ran.
Yeah.
well,
He said it was for
Hickenlooper's-
personal reasons, but
I think back now, I'm like, I wonder if that was a whole deal. And,
Like, what was
stepped
going on behind the
aside and
scenes?
Hickenlooper was the one. Yeah. Because, I
Like-
wasn't as behind the scenes then. I was still in college still. So, but now that I think back, I'd like to hear more about how that worked out.
how that went down.
Yeah.
mhm.
Well, Hickenlooper's the next
Mhm.
governor, and I think he fits this quirky profile probably the best, right? The
I-
brewery geologist, brewery master who can't recognize faces, as Tim points out. He says he has face blindness.
Mhm.
Also, he's just kind of a goofball.
Well, he
I mean,
started
I
as a
feel-
scooter guy when he ran
Oh
for
my
mayor.
God.
His commercial was him on this like scooter.
putting money in the meters.
Yeah, not the scooters that we see now everywhere
no.
that everyone can't stand, but like the moped. He was on
Yeah.
a moped. That's what it was. Yeah.
Yep.
And he was riding around Denver and putting money in the meter.
It was really a mid 2000s thing to be on a scooter.
Yeah. And
that
he
way.
was like the quintessential like Denver dude at the time. Brewery, riding the Vespa around.
Pretty quirky.
Yeah.
My favorite Hickenlooper story is when he was running for president. He was not doing well. And he
forgot
was in
about that.
Vermont. And the New York Times had a reporter on his campaign. And Trump was running and doing very well on the strength of his insulting nicknames for his opponents. And so Hickenlooper was like, yeah, I should be the Democratic nominee because who knows what kind of nickname Trump would give me. That guy's always insulting people. And then Hickenlooper had like 3 nicknames for himself ready to roll, including Poop and Scooper.
No.
And like Chicken Cooper, which is like, why are you brainstorming roast for yourself,
What
man?
is he? What?
Why?
He's late on that first one because that's what we called him the year
Poop
he
and
ran.
Scooper?
Yeah, because we're like in high school and everyone's like, what's his name? Hickenlooper, Poop and Scooper. And I remember a bunch of kids stole his signs and wrote Poop and Scooper on them.
Hell yeah. That's hilarious.
I was like, so you didn't even know you already had gotten roasted.
Oh my gosh. And then our current governor, Jared Polis, super rich tech guy. Tim says, super rich tech guy with the fashion sense of a middle schooler on laundry day, quotes Lord of the Rings and South Park in official addresses and does a Yoda impression during the State of the State. Yeah, he may have outquirked Hickenlooper. I feel like we just got progressively weirder.
Oh, yeah. J-Po for sure.
The thing about Polis's quirkiness is that he weaponizes it. He knows that his nerdiness and weirdness is the thing that makes him relatable, because otherwise he's this like super brainy, super strategic thinker.
Yeah.
But he has these moments of like, yeah, I like Star Wars like a regular man. I like Harry Potter.
Yeah. He's like, we watched South Park.
I mean, he was really smart on that. He was like, these guys are maybe the most famous people to come out of Colorado at this point. They want to invest a lot of money in us. He's a business guy, you know? He saw what South Park was doing.
Yeah, he knows what he's doing. He knows what his quirkiness gets him. Yeah.
Yeah, he's a gay nerd. I mean, we all went to high school with him. We know this guy. He's relatable.
Didn't GQ give him like worst dressed in Congress?
They sure did.
Yeah. I have a picture of him when he was in Congress at an event, and the outfit is just so...
The bow tie, I think, for a while was really detrimental. He just looked like a real dork. The polo shirt
with the suit jacket and the tie.
Terrible.
Amazing.
So Tim rounds this up with he says, so my question is, can Michael Bennet live up to this legacy of quirk? The Yale-educated, appointed then elected senator seems to ... normal. He says, even Paul Caroli can win re-elections in a blue state, and he doesn't even know what snow tires are.
Wow.
Tim, this made me laugh so much.
But the Bennett question, and I think, Paul, you and I were talking about this, you were like, the Bennett or the Weiser question.
Yeah, Phil Weiser.
Or one of these, the quirkier.
There's a lot of people running for governor now, a lot of Republicans. I'm most interested in the Democratic race. I think whoever is going to win that primary is going to win the governor's office personally. And these two guys are the big candidates we got. In terms of quirkiness, I think Phil Weiser is a little more quirky.
I agree.
Yes. I mean, with personal interactions with him, absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, the guy, he loves talking to you about Trader Joe's. Brie.
He loves Trader Joe's.
He loves sharing his opinions on the Trader Joe's snacks.
I ran into him at the latke contest at the JCC, but he wasn't there for the latke contest. He was there to work out. And I was like, are you going to?
He's
like, I'm going to the gym.
I see Phil Weiser everywhere.
Yeah, he is. I saw him standing on a street corner in Cherry Creek the other day. I was like, oh, there's Phil Weiser.
Yeah. Bennett has the voice thing going. Like he has that deep voice. I'm Michael Bennett.
Well,
hello,
Mr.
Colorado.
President.
Yeah.
But is that
the
quirky?
Chinese Communist Party? That was horrible. I gotta work on that. Elections how far away?
Michael Bennett.
2026?
Yeah.
November 2026? Well, that's good. We have time because the ending of Tim's email, he says, this is why Justine Sandoval needs to run. She understands Colorado politics, has run successful campaigns, brings just the right amount of quirk, and most importantly, knows her green chili. Join me in urging Justine to run for governor. Best, Tim from the far west side of Denver.
Hold on there, Tim. Okay.
Draft Justine.
I'm not wearing them today, but I have my hoop earrings.
Yeah.
So I got like that.
That could be your thing.
Yeah.
The hoop earrings.
Hoop earrings. I'm like, I'll take these off and fight for you,
I
Colorado.
would vote for you. You know Colorado so well. And you don't just know, like, you're born and raised Denverite. You know rural Colorado.
I do.
You're a San Luis Valley girl.
Well, maybe someday in the future.
Yeah. She's not saying no, folks.
She's not saying it's not going to happen. Yeah. Also, just in general, I kind of brought this up, Paul, but there's 24 people running for governor at this point.
Oh, yeah.
So
there's other people, too. We forget all the
quirky people.
Yeah.
That wild lady, Marla Fernandez, is running who used racial slurs on Twitter when she was running against Meg Froelich, I think.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I've got video of Marla and I at Cinco de Mayo a few years ago. It's good. Maybe I'll post.
So there'd be some fun people to watch. I don't know if that's quirky, though. I don't know if she'd fit the quirky.
She's quirky, but not in a good, fun way.
Well, Justine, if you run for governor, will you please, will we be the place that you will reveal that?
Absolutely.
Okay.
City Castle here at first.
Good.
Thank you.
Good.
All right, well, let's take one more break, and when we come back, our wins and fails of the week. And we're back. Before we get into our Rocky Mountain highs and lows, Paul has a surprise for us. Should I?
Well, for the cost of a month of membership,
Okay.
to become a CityCast
Just
Denver neighbor,
$10.
$10. And I was like, I'm going to spend $10, make something fun. Because I said, I saw these at the grocery store the other day, and I thought it might be fun to try this.
Oh, boy.
See what you all think.
Oh, boy.
What is it?
This is the Nikola Jokic
Oh, my God, I saw these.
I took a picture of that.
I almost
branded
bought
energy
them.
drink.
Yes.
Well, here, I got one for each of you.
Oh, my God. I almost bought one of these. Oh, my God.
Please, this is a Serbian company that he has an endorsement deal with, so he is going to see some money from this.
Guarana.
And if you become a member, we'll see some money from that, and it would support us. Keep making a show that you like.
Membership.citycast.fm. Again, yeah, just $10 a month.
Joker,
No sleep.
no sleep.
Should we try them?
Yeah. Apparently, the name of the company is Guarana. I thought that was just one of the
I thought that was like
ingredients.
the energy
Supplement,
supplement
yeah.
in it.
I'm like,
Oof.
oh.
Are you two
Yes.
energy drink people?
No.
No, my heart's already racing. I got cold sweats.
Yeah, it just tastes like a knockoff Red Bull.
Oh my God, it tastes exactly like Red Bull.
So when
Maybe
I
a little bit.
first quit drinking, Justine, I used to go to Teddy's,
Oh,
the
Teddy's.
nightclub inside the hotel off 58.
Yeah.
And I'd get just chug Red Bulls all night,
Yeah.
dance on the dance floor, DJ hijinks.
Sugar-free Red Bull, it was like the drink of choice before cocktail waitressing all night.
What do you think, Paul?
I don't know. It's fine. It tastes like one of them. There's a lot of Serbian on the can.
I noticed that. I
That's
think
something.
they've got a label over this, maybe. I wish you could kind of read the Serbian.
Yeah, the sticker of so this is the same can that they're drinking
In Serbia.
That's right.
Ball is the canning
Sombor.
Of course.
company.
How could it not be?
Yay.
Oof.
Go
Not bad.
Nugs.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Did you see they bumped Kylie Minogue from the Ballerina show because it's the night of it's a playoff game night?
Wow.
Gays are mad. Got a
No,
lot of
I'm like-
texts last night. Like, she's never going to come back now. And I was like, well, it's kind of Crocky's deal, right?
Mhm.
It's his choice.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's get into our Rocky Mountain highs and lows, our wins and fails, things that ruled, things that sucked. We will start with fails as always, so we can end on a high note. Paul, what's your fail?
Yes, my fail, kind of a follow-up to our discussion last week about Pride losing corporate sponsorships
Yeah.
and really struggling and having to scale back what Pride is going to be this year. There's a similar story this week. The Juneteenth Music Festival coming up in June. It's apparently going to be only one day this year instead of two. It's just June 15th because of, according to a press release, the loss of several longtime sponsors amid shifting corporate priorities and a challenging philanthropic landscape. Excuse me, just a little bit of Joker energy drink affecting me. Yeah, so that's too bad for the Juneteenth Music Festival. That's a cool event here. And they're doing a crowdfunding campaign, which is what
Yeah.
I think we talked about last week around Pride, is ask the people. So maybe that'll be
Yeah.
successful for Juneteenth. But
It just makes me worried too, because Denver in particular has so many great cultural events throughout the year that celebrate so many aspects of our communities. And how is this going to continue? Are we going to continue to lose these? And I think we need community more than ever right now. People need
Yeah.
to have reasons to interact with each other or meet strangers or enjoy art together and celebrate the culture of Denver, which Juneteenth does. And that's such a bummer.
yeah, I know it's important to a lot of people.
Well, we'll put a link to the show in the show notes to the GoFundMe. Justine, I feel like we might have the same fail, but
I think, I actually had the same fail as Paul, which was Juneteenth being cut back to one day. But, to me, it's very important because we've lost a lot of culture in the 5 Points. And this is like one of those weekends I really look forward to because it reminds me of old East Side Denver, a lot of the old community that have moved out, come back for that weekend. And you spend the entire weekend there. But this is a reflection across the board when it comes to nonprofits, festivals, losing money right now. So it's really unfortunate. But I want to remind people that before we had corporate sponsors, a lot of these festivals, Cinco de Mayo, Juneteenth, came out of community collaboration, and there was no corporate money before. So really, working hard to get our communities to reinvest back in these and keeping it local and kind of getting back to the original message and where these festivals came from, I think is really important right now, especially to the younger generation, and help them pick up these festivals and kind of, reroute them from their original causes.
I love that. I love that optimistic twist.
Yeah.
That is such a good attitude too. Like in time of change and time of what seems like a setback, try to see the opportunity. What could be the next thing that fills the space? Who can grow into this?
Yeah. We didn't need Coors for Pride before, right?
Oh my gosh. Well, and just like also when the community funds it and the community runs it, it reflects what the community wants.
Yeah.
I mean, it is one of the coming out of the DIY world where I put on a festival with no money and no sponsorship, you get to determine exactly what happens there and how it feels and how it serves your community. So you have a lot more control, actually.
Absolutely.
So maybe that's the upswing of it. Well, my fail was Dr. Warren Hearn closing his Boulder abortion clinic after 50 years. His clinic provided late-term abortions for more than 40,000 individuals over 50 years. He not only provided safe, accessible reproductive health care that was often seen as controversial, he spoke openly about it and supported it and was really fearless in talking about it. He called it his sacred commitment and his life's work. And his clinic was threatened. His family was threatened. His clinic was shot at. I highly recommend a great documentary from 2013 called After Tiller, which interviews and talks to, at that time, the 4 doctors providing these types of late-term abortions in the country. And Dr. George Tiller was one of these abortion doctors who was murdered while he was at church. But they talked to Dr. Hearn in this documentary, and Justine, access to abortion is crucial. Colorado has always been one of these places that's a bastion for this, for other people people came from all over the world to see Dr. Hearn. So I wonder, what do you think it means to lose someone who is doing this particular aspect of reproductive health care?
It's a big loss. I've known Dr. Hearn for over a decade now. I know him very well. I've worked with him. And, this is a long overdue retirement for him.
He was 86.
Yeah. And he hung on a lot longer than he had planned to. But it's because there are not a lot of people, because it's dangerous. It's a really dangerous line of work. There's not a lot of support sometimes in medical schools to go in. Like I've read that, it's not even a procedure that's often offered when you're becoming an OBGYN, that you electively volunteer to learn how to do an abortion procedure. So, he held on for a long time because there was no one else to do that work. And it was tough. He spent a lot of his own money and resources to create security around the clinic. And so I think it's scary because we need a new generation of providers. But, Dr. Hearn has
well-deserved retirement.
Well-deserved retirement. But it'll take a lot to fill that void. But I think one thing for sure is we definitely need to be encouraging people to become abortion providers and make sure that we're doing everything we can to protect them.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's go to our wins. Justine, what's your win this week?
So a win for this week was something that we talked about not long ago on the show, but for the new National Women's Soccer League stadium. It passed through a city council committee this week, and it is going to go on to a full vote for city council on May 12th. So, there's a lot that goes into approving a project like this, not just building the stadium, but street infrastructure and all of the things that the city has to buy into. But it sounds like there is a lot of support coming from this project, and a lot of people in the community seem to want the city council to pass this. So that's good news for the progress of the stadium.
Yeah. We talked about this a few weeks ago. I have new questions about this. It's $70 million of public money. They didn't say this when they proposed the stadium. They held this back.
Yeah,
And then they were like,
talking to
taxpayers need to spend $70 million to clean up all this dirty field and then build all these like sewage hookups and stuff. That wasn't part of the deal when you got me excited to sign up for the pre-orders of the season
tickets. That was a red
tickets.
flag because I thought that they had the land already, but they're like, the 70 mil is to purchase the land too. Yeah, I was like, wait a minute.
And they're talking about Kansas City like this is some great example of how they did it right. And like the Kansas City owners bought the land themselves.
Yeah.
I don't think the city
I can see taxpayers saying we have a lot of things that maybe might take priority over this. I was talking to a political person recently, and he was talking about schools still needing air conditioning, like some really basic stuff. So I could see where it's not as rosy of it's not as shiny of a sell if we're paying.
I mean,
but
it's a win for the team.
I think
that's for sure. For the ownership group.
True.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to give it up.
We were also championing this, this push towards women's sports, right? Like
there's a lot of wins.
It's very complicated
story.
It's a complicated story. I like the idea of us investing in a women's team. Like $70 million. I'm like, is that a lot of money anymore?
It's just worth getting into
relative.
A little bit
it's
more.
It's relative. But yeah, I mean,
I'm sorry, we didn't mean to yuck your yum.
I'm excited about this.
If the uniforms are cool, I'm into it.
No, if the name is good too. I mean,
Paul, what's your win?
My win is for Representative Emily Sirota, but also a little bit for myself because I predicted this bill would pass this year before the session started. I said the winds are blowing in this direction. It's the junk fees bill, and it bans several fees common in rental housing. Also, it requires companies to show the total price of the product or service that they're selling. That includes the price of the product and any mandatory charges and fees included. So that's the
sorry. When they
Denver
say price
Post.
of the product, they mean like what the rent will be.
Yeah, like rent, but also like dog poop
fees or
DNA testing fee or
pool cleaning
or any of these other things.
So it's a transparency. That's great.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people were calling for that. I think it's important to a lot of Denverites who are struggling with rent and confused about why it seems to cost so much more than they thought it would when they signed up. So a win for Representative Emily Sirota and for a lot of renters. Obviously, it remains to be seen how this thing gets implemented. This stuff is going to get fought and picked apart as it actually goes into practice, but win for her for sure.
Did we see there was news that apartment or that rental costs were dropping?
Yeah, they're actually announcing that as we speak. The Apartment Association of Metro Denver is reporting a second straight quarter of drops, the lowest average rent since 2022.
Great. Even better.
Market's always changing.
There's more houses on the market now, too.
There's a lot more houses on the market that are sitting there. It's interesting. The real estate market is a whole other conversation. Well, my win this week is my friend Andrea Padas, who teaches yoga for bigger bodies. We've had her on the show before. She's hosting this thrift and resale event called the Fat and Fresh Market at Lady Justice Brewing. Her and her friend run this thrift resale boutique called Big Fat Mood, and they sell clothes specifically in sizes XL to 6X. And I just love seeing people do something in the world that they want to see. And she started by doing this yoga and bigger bodies, which she does. She teaches yoga for fat folks. This is how she self-identifies. And now she's finding ways to even expand that by curating and selling awesome clothes for the community too. So I'll put a link in the show notes, but the flyer says a spring market for fat people by fat people. And I'm just excited to see her continue to grow this thing that she wanted to see in Denver. It's so cool.
I want to respond to that. I talked to her just by coincidence, probably 6 weeks ago now. I happened to talk to her because
she's a bartender, right?
Because she had testified at the state capitol against the tipped minimum wage fee before they amended it to make it about local control, but when it was just going to reduce wages for people who make tips. And she was so fired up. She said it was the first time she'd ever testified, and she was so fired up and energized and excited about this. She sat for hours and hours and hours through this hearing. So I don't know. I think she's a person to watch in Denver, personally.
Totally agree. I just know her from the music world. She's a musician and she's a great singer too. So she's doing a lot of cool things in Denver. But again, I'll put a link in the show notes if you want to go down to Lady Justice Brewing. Check this out. Me, Andrea too. She's awesome. Cool. Well, Justine, Paul, thank you so much.
Thanks, Brie.
That's all for today here on CityCast Denver. Our producers this week were Paul Caroli and Olivia Jewel Love. Adam Sage edits the video for YouTube. McKenna Harford writes our morning newsletter, Hey Denver. Abby Madigan runs our social media. I'm your host, Brie Davies. Our music is by Los Mogochetes with additional mixing by Tyler Lindgren. If you haven't already, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Follow us on Instagram at CityCast Denver and tell Dr. Hearn about us next time you see him. You can sign up for our daily newsletter and learn more about us at denver.citycast.fm. See you next week.